Hey guys, Dave here from Rules of Engravement. We already talked about optics in a previous shorter video. We're going to go a little bit more into depth about pistol optics this time. Pistol optics being important, knowing that if this is the best way to aim, our handgun should be equipped just as well as our rifles. Especially for the average citizen, the chances are most likely we don't carry a rifle on us every single day. There's a high likelihood that you could carry a pistol every day. So if it's advantageous for aiming with a rifle or a long gun, any kind of shotgun or rifle, why wouldn't we do it with our handgun, all right? The big benefits of optics is one focal plane shooting. What does that mean? Our eyes are very much like cameras that I'm staring into right now. It's only gonna focus clearly on one distance, right? So with iron sights shooting, a lot of times we're given the tutelage or the instruction, stare at the front sight, stare at the front sight, right? Have it nice, crisp, and clear, because that's the easiest way to relate where your front and rear sights are. But then what does that do? You have a blurry target now, which definitely makes positive identification or PID much harder. Tracking movement or moving target, much harder to shoot staring at the front sight. And if we're thinking of any kind of self-defense or personal protection application, we need to be training the way that we're actually going to fight in that moment, which is staring at whatever the threat is to our safety, right? There's so many different options out nowadays, there's almost not a bad pick, right? If you wanted this color, if you wanted that color, this size, this battery type, there's just so many options on the market from Holosun, Trijicon, SIG, so many different availabilities out there to suit your needs. It's really very, very much personalized and dependent on what your application is going to be. If you are a 100% concealed carrier, that gun is never in a duty holster, outside the waistband, open optic, everything, probably a little smaller optic would be more suited for you. We have a Glock 43X MOS here. It comes with the Shield RMRcc red dot sight. That also fits with different adapter plates for these smaller offerings from other manufacturers. Holosun would be one of them, right? As well as the SIG Romeo Zero for the SIG 365 line. It's going to screw right on. You don't need any adapter plates for the slide. That's something we can go into a little later. But starting from your right, the Holosun 407K here is a fantastic purchase for the price, okay? You get a lot of bang for your buck with the optic. You get up to 50,000 hours of battery life. The 407K is very similar to what's right next to it is the 507K. Biggest differences between these two is actually gonna be what the end user prefers, the reticle, okay? The 407K has a 6 MOA reticle, meaning at 100 yards, it takes up about 6 inches, right, of the target. The 507K has a different type of reticle. It has a 2 MOA reticle for the red dot that you're actually seeing, and then it has a 32 MOA circle around that. So there's gonna be a dot and then a larger circle around it. The circle is used for easier identification, right, on targets to perceive your sights, faster sight acquisition, as well as different holdovers for whatever your zero might be at a given distance. These optics come in probably somewhere between $300–400 in that neighborhood. So once we're talking about pistol optics, remember it's not going to be $40, $50, or $80. If you buy one of those and put it on your gun, you might end up becoming a pirate when that slide cycles back. We don't want to cheap out on things that we might depend our life on. Make sense? The other optics that we have here, still going to the left, the Holosun 508T. All right, this one is in green. They do make them in red, right? So maybe you prefer the green reticle, right? The actual aiming reference point. Maybe you prefer a red reticle. There's a bunch of different colors out there. Red and green are usually the most common, right? For a lot of people to see while they're out either using a friend's gun, renting a firearm, or something else. It's totally personal preference as far as red or green. There's no real benefit detractor. It's just whatever your eye picks up a little better. I actually prefer the green. Christian that works here as well, he prefers red. It's not gonna make a difference in your shooting ability. It's just a preference, right? An awesome car is an awesome car. We're just debating the color. Now the 508T is pretty great because it has a titanium housing, right? That's much more robust, reliable, dependable, that we really need these optics to be able to take a beating, so to speak. Pistol optics are a little different than rifle, shotgun, or any kind of long gun optics that do not cycle with the action. These optics are mounted on the pistols on the slide. The slide cycles during the function of the firearm, right? That's negative force onto the optic. right? Depending on how you mount it, whether you mount it directly to the slide, like on this Boresight Glock 17, done it by Boresight Solutions, that's why it's so fantastic. You can mount the optic directly to the slide if it's milled, if the slide is milled out for that optic. Sets the optic a little lower, right? A little more natural presentation when you go to aim, there's less fishing. The other option is going with mounting plates. And mounting plates, depending on the firearm, can be just as robust and reliable. Make sure they're installed properly, right? And if you don't know how, that's why we have rules of engravement here. You can come and ask us. The next offering we had, the Holosun 509T, right? Very similar to 508, except this is a closed emitter optic, right? What I mean by open and closed emitter is if you can see the back of the 508T, it's open. Any kind of water or debris that gets onto the back of that lens could obscure your target as far as being able to see through, or might occlude your optic. Basically impossible with the 509T, short of having a complete optic failure. Now, the two larger, the 508 and the 509T optics, do have a solar panel on top. The larger optics that have the solar panel means if your battery runs dead, you can still use the optic. It's not like it just disappears. Now it's just running on the ambient light. So if you're inside, it'll dial it down to the indoor type lighting situation that you're at. If you shoot outdoors, the dot's gonna be much brighter so you can still see it. So that's a fantastic feature. Also, the optic is not just sitting there drawing on the battery the entire time. You can put it into battery saving mode or solar mode. Especially with the more robust optics from Holosun. What a really nice feature I like about these is the lockout feature. You can set the brightness, right, for whatever setting that you know you're going to be using it at, and lock out the brightness, because these buttons that are on the side of the optic control how bright the reticle is. The dimmer the reticle looks, on certain situations it'll look like you have a smaller refined aiming point, but if you dim it too low based on your ambient light, you won't be able to see the red dot. So you have no aiming reference point at that moment. Now, having that lockout feature would be fantastic for a law enforcement officer, that this might be banged around, this might be bumped into, this optic in the holster might go through a scuffle with a suspect. It needs to be able to take that kind of beating and still perform reliably no matter what it's asked of it. For outside use, for security use, for professional use, for law enforcement use, competition, there's so many great advantageous reasons to buy the enclosed emitter that the open emitters are starting to catch up. We're getting smaller closed emitters as time and science move on, so very exciting time. So next we have the Trijicon RMR, the ruggedized miniature reflex sight. This is absolutely hands down the name in pistol optics. Has been, I believe it came out in 2013, if I'm not mistaken. So this design has been around for a long while. This is the only miniature red dot that has rugged in the name. It is a fantastic optic. It can take a beating and keep going. But like everything, anything made by man will fail. Not if, but will. It's either time or usage, right? I've been using RMRs for years. I have actually had to send an RMR back to Trijicon for warranty work. I live in South Florida. When you take outdoor classes, you will be rained on. It's not if, it's just when. And the amount of rain might do something to the electronics. So when I sent it in for the warranty work, I did get a working RMR back. They just said it was electronical failure, obviously. They didn't go too into depth, and that's probably for a good reason. I don't build the red dots, so I probably wouldn't understand what actually failed. But just to say that you can buy the $300 sight, you can buy this $800 sight, you can buy anything in between, over and above. Everything breaks, guys. Get out there and use your stuff so that you actually find out what works and what doesn't. The RMR, like I said, is the longest standing reliable red dot for its rigidity, size, and just overall reliability. And then they made something else very, very, very similar, almost the exact same optic, just shrunk down. The RMRcc concealed, right? So the RMRcc fits a similar idea or application, just like the Holosun 407K, the Holosun 507K. They are for the slimline or single stack pistols, such as your M&P Shield, Glock 43X, SIG P365, any of these slimmer, not traditional size double stack handguns, right? So the size of the slide on the pistol needs to be accepting of the optic that you want to put on there, or you're going to have a little issue finding an adapter plate. Everything is out there and available. It just takes some searching for. The RMRcc has very similar features. The bottom loading battery, so you do have to remove the sight every time you change the optic. The next part is, again, we're talking less than one time a year that you need to. The safe bet is just go ahead and change it once a year on your birthday. It's at most a $6 battery, right? It's not life-changing. The other thing that I do, just any of the optics that I have too many optics to remember when I changed out certain batteries. So whenever I install a new battery, I take a fine tip Sharpie and I write the month and year onto the battery face. I install it into the optic. I use it until I decide to change it or it dies on me, depending on what I use it for. And then once I take it out, that's a good way to track how long the battery life was. Did I use it more? Were these batteries a little cheaper? Do I like Duracell more than Energizer? Again, do your research and see what you come up with. Price point, these Trijicons are definitely going to be more than the Holosuns, than the SIGs. The offerings that other companies give you are fantastic optics, but they might not be as robust, right? There's plenty of great reviews also out on YouTube for each one of these optics for people that deface them and bash them into concrete and fantastic things with that. So do all the fun research you can. It's gonna be whatever your need is, right? That decides. I wouldn't put the Holosun 407K on a 16-inch AR-15, and I'm probably not gonna put the Holosun 509T or a full-sized RMR on a SIG P365. There's so many different varieties out there, guys. There's so many different options. It's really it's a great time to be alive. All you need to do is have an idea of what your end goal is, and we'll help you get there. So any of these optics that we've gone over today that you'd like to come in and check out, maybe ask some more inquisitive questions, please come and check us out at Rules of Engravement, and have a great day. Next offering we have is from Trijicon. This is the name in pistol optics, has been since 2013. You gotta be kidding me.